Mr. James T. McLawhorn. It's Black History Month, and we're talking to South Carolina history makers, trailblazers. And there's a list of those that are still alive, and there's a list of those that are gone on. And I'm very happy you're on the list of everybody that's still alive. So
Thank you.
we had to come out here today to the Columbia Urban League and talk to you. So thanks for taking time out of your day. Most people know you from the Columbia Urban League. You've been around since 1979, but we want to take it back to the beginning. Tell us about your start here. Are you from Columbia?
No, I'm not.
Tell us where you're from. Tell us about your upbringing.
Yeah, I was born in Greenville, North Carolina. And I often tell young people when we're talking about work and work experience that as a teenager, I used to go to work, report to work at 5:30 a.m. And I started working in tobacco. I was working in tobacco fields in North Carolina.
I did too.
Yeah, okay, so we got a lot in common.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and that was a big time job when you can move to the tobacco field. But before that, I carried newspapers. I was a newspaper boy.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I moved to the tobacco fields, I mean, that was a big thing. Teenager, you out there working with those adults. I mean, that was a huge accomplishment to be able to elevate from a tobacco handler, handing tobacco under bond, to move out into the field with adults. So I've always been involved in work. Work has been an integral part of my life. And so one of the passion that I have, particularly for young people, is to introduce them to work, because work is life-changing. And when you look at the history of African American people, that history is driven by a strong work ethics, and also the desire to achieve and a belief in oneself. And so I had that as a foundation very, very, very early on in my life. I had parents who instilled work ethics, who instilled achievement, and most of all, who instilled believing in yourself. And so I left Greenville. I went to A&T State University. I was there during the 60s and when Black Power was in vogue. And that was another experience for us because I went to segregated schools. I grew up in a time where the restrooms had signs, colored and white only. So I saw all of that. And went to A&T. That's a new generation where people have said, we want opportunity. We want equal opportunity. We want freedom. We want to be treated as equally, as equal. So we want to be treated equally. So during that period at A&T, I got really introduced to the Black Power movement. But more than the Black Power movement, it was a movement for equality. It was a movement for equity, in essence. So a lot of people get confused because they thought it was just a movement just to talk about Black Power, but it was a move for social justice and equal opportunity. Now, some people today consider the Black Lives Matter movement as a replicate of the movement in the 60s, the Black Power movement. So, you go through this evolution process, and, history repeats itself. And so now, 50 years later, people now are going through this process that folks went through in the early 60s.
Where did that passion for activism come from? Because I see it in your work every day. You're very passionate about what you do. And where did that passion come from? Did you pick that up at A&T?
Well, I think I really picked it up from my parents. My parents were stand-up people and always instilled upon us that you must speak out for what's right, and that you must be your brother or your sister's keeper. That you must look out for other people, that it's not about you. And so I guess they taught us without us really understanding what they were teaching us. They taught us about civic engagement. And civic engagement is that as a person in the world, as a person in society, you have a responsibility and a commitment to make the world a better place. And so I think that passion is attributed to my upbringing with my parents. And I think that, quite often, so many young people today don't have that passion because they don't have that foundation. And I think somehow over the years, people have gotten comfortable in their lifestyles, and they feel that the past is gone. Some people, I remember when President Obama was elected, people talk about the post civil rights era to a certain degree. They talked about that of the post racial climate. That once you elected an African American as president of the United States of America, that race ceased to be an issue. That disparity, that inequality, that unfairness seemed to be issues anymore. And so people got too comfortable. And I think we have to always understand the writing on the wall. I think my parents also instilled upon us discernment, the ability to look beyond your immediate circumstances, to be able to look behind, to be able to decipher the writing on the wall. And I think so often people are naive about things that are going on. But I think the bottom line is that if we want change, we must be engaged in our community. We must move from the sideline to the front line. No one is going to do it for us but us. And we can work together. But we must take the first step, in essence.
After college and up until, I guess, 1979, where you started at the Columbia Urban League, talk about that period. What went on there?
Well, when I left A&T State University, I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I was a Ford Fellow, and they had a new curriculum. Well, it wasn't really a new curriculum, but it was a push to get African American students into city and regional planning. During that time, we had the situations in the 60s after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We had what we call racial riots in the country, and there was a lot of destruction going on.
Absolutely.
So there was a big movement to rebuild America. And for the most part, African American people did not have the skills or the training to be active participants in that process. So the Ford Foundation set up this fellowship program. I was selected. I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. It was a 2-year program where we were trained in how to plan a city. And so we went through all the aspects of city planning. And so when I left University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, I went to work in Charlotte, North Carolina. I worked for the Model Cities program, and they called it the City Demonstration Act. These were funds that were really initiated by President Johnson. It was called the Great Society Program. And at the heart of the Great Society's program, its mission was to eliminate poverty. Eliminate poverty, this was a program that started early on in the 60s. And so the program probably ran for less than a decade. And folks said, we didn't really make a dent at all, so we're going to move on to something else. But I think, those initiatives during those days, I've seen some of those programs being recycled today. Because the program was all about giving people the skills to help themselves. It was not a giveaway program like a lot of people want people to believe. It was also a time that we had something called urban renewal. And urban renewal was when the government will allow people to remove low-income people from their homestead to do new construction, whether it was a highway, whether it was building some type of governmental facilities. They would just move people out. They would just relocate people. And if you look at 277 here in Columbia, when you drive 277, you see two communities. You see a community on one side of 277, you see another community on the other side of 277. At one time, it was one community, but this was going on all over the country, in essence. And so, as a result of that, people were being disenfranchised. And so, city planners were those who were conscious and sensitive to community needs, were empowered to try to work with community people to try to help them to mitigate, some of this displacement. And there were funds available, and also to ensure uh, people who were going to be displaced to make sure they got the maximum benefits so that when they did relocate, they could be made whole, in essence. So it was a really challenging time during that period of time. And so I worked, then I went into the workforce development. So very early on, I worked in a program called the Comprehensive Employment Training Program, CETA. I was assistant director of that program in Charlotte, and we really try to help people to find work. So the kinds of things I'm doing at the Urban League, I was very early on, I was introduced to those concepts and methodologies.
I see. So it seems like it's pretty much a natural transition.
National transition,
To,
But then I took another quantum leap.
okay.
So, remember, I'm in government, and all of a sudden, uh, in the early 70s, mid 70s, I want to go into the private sector. So I went into banking. I went back to school. I got a master's degree in business administration in 1977. And so I really wanted to go into the private sector. So I was in business working in banking for a little while. And I realized that my calling was not there. My calling was serving the needs of people, in essence. I remember telling someone during the discussion of the Vietnam War, because during that era, a lot of people were being drafted to serve. And I was very proud that I could tell people that I'm working and I'm a soldier in the war on poverty. Because that was during the same time, the war on poverty. That's what the Great Society program was all about, So, I felt as a soldier, I must fight to try to help eliminate poverty and to fight to help other people. So fast forward, I got to change. I want to do something differently. And I started reading a lot about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s speeches and things. And, Dr. King said that everybody can be great because everybody can serve. And he asked the question, what is the most pressing and urgent question that we have to deal with today? And that is, what are you going to do to help others? So I started meditating about that. Then I saw a want ad in the section, a job announcement in the want ad section of the Charlotte Observer newspaper, looking for someone to run the Urban League in Columbia, South Carolina. So I came here. And when I came here, I was hired and everything else is history, But I think that, when you know that you got a calling, and when you have a passion for that calling, and when you talk to the Lord about that, it all will come together,
It's been almost 40 years, Mr. McLawhorn, that you've been here. I bet you didn't think you'd be here quite that long.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be just a brief stop. But I think, the lesson to be learned from this, when you pray and you ask God to direct your path, and you said, I want to make a difference, Lord, send me somewhere where I can make a difference. You must follow that calling. You don't have the authority to say, well, I'm tired now. There's a better paying job over across the street. Let me go. Because it ceases to be about yourself. You become one who's doing God's will. And only God can determine your timetable. In essence, So people ask me the question, say, well, you've been here for a long time. I know you must have had some other opportunities. I said, yes. And they said, well, why didn't you take advantage of it? I said, well, I asked the Lord to direct my path when I came here. And so I had to wait for a word, Quite often people say, well, the Lord asked me to do this and the Lord asked me to do that, But you have to be very clear that you have received the right message. So that's why I'm here.
How does it make you feel now where a lot of young men and women, they came through your program, through the Urban League, and now you see them and they're 30, 40 years old, and they remember you back when they were 10 or 12? How does that make you feel? Well,
I tell you, it's a wonderful experience, But I think more than anything else, it just shows the will of God, Because I think that
And I always tell people, everything that has occurred that has been good in my career has been of God, and everything that has been not too good probably been more of me. And I think you have to look at it this way because it's, you can't do this work being about yourself
Yeah.
in essence. And people got to understand that you fighting uphill battles, you fighting principalities, you fight a lot of challenges in essence. And only God can direct your step and guide you through this process. So when people tell me, said, uh, I want to commend you on what you all are doing, I said, first of all, and I'm very serious about this, it's not rhetoric. We got to recognize He who is able, and that is God.
Since 1979, I'm sure there have been a lot of ups, and there's probably been a lot of downs since you've been here at Columbia Urban League. Mr. McLawhorn, talk a little bit about two or three of the things that you're most proud of during your tenure here.
Well, I think first of all is that we have been able to sustain a program providing opportunities for young people. I think young people, I know young people are our future. And I think there's nothing more important than teaching young people character development than giving them opportunity to work. The Bible says if you don't work, you don't eat. And so we've had programs for young people for over 30 years and teaching them work ethics, teaching them life skills development, trying to help them connect and be self-reliant so they don't have to be dependable upon people. And we're really, very grateful for the opportunity to work with so many young people, and very grateful for those who have supported us in this endeavor. I think the second thing is that we have had an opportunity to bring people together to find common ground. Quite often people don't realize that they have more in common than differences. And so we have been able to play a pivotal point in bringing people together. We're very proud that in 2000, the year you came to Columbia, in January 2000, under the leadership of Dr. David Swinton, who was chairman of the Urban League Board as well as president of Benedict College, we were able to help to bring a coalition together for King Day at the Dome. It was a wonderful experience. We had over 6,000 people to participate in a nonviolent march. And the challenge that we faced, a lot of people don't understand. They saw the march, but we had so much pushback from people telling us that we don't approve of marches, we don't support marches. If anything goes wrong with this march, they told Dr. Swinton and me, we're going to hold y'all responsible and accountable for it. But we knew God was on our side, and we knew that was the right thing to do. We brought all these people together. We had no disturbances. It was a beautiful, very peaceful demonstration. And it was a coalition, a broad coalition of community stakeholders. And so people came together on one accord. I think the third thing that we are very proud of is that we have been able to bring people together to support the mission of the Urban League. See, we talked earlier about trying to help people find common ground, but we have been able to bring people together to support the mission of the Urban League, to sustain the organization. It is very challenging in trying to run a nonprofit organization. A lot of people think we're governmental agencies. We think we are a governmental agency. We're not a governmental agency. We're like start out with a zero-based budget, and we have to raise our money. It's like really we are a nonprofit organization, but we have to raise our own funds like a business, in essence.
I guess almost 40 years you've been here, and now we're going to look to the future. What are two or three of the things that you consider to be, points of concern for you now as we move forward? We've accomplished a lot. That flag has come down during your tenure. A lot of things have changed in South Carolina, but there's still some concerns out there, I'm sure, for Mr. McLawhorn. What are two or three issues or concerns that you feel like need to be addressed in the immediate future?
Well, I think that we have to realize that progress will not be sustained unless we are vigilant. And vigilancy means that we have to continue to keep our eyes on the prize, in essence, and that is a fair quality of life for all people, where people feel that they have an opportunity to do their best, an opportunity to fulfill their dreams. I think the challenges we face with today are a little different than what we had years ago, because so many young people don't believe in themselves. Even though I shared with you that I grew up in an era where there was colored and white facilities, we believe in ourselves. We knew that we can be something, in essence. Today, you find so many young people who are 19 or 20 years old. You talk with them about their future. They would tell you, say, Mr. McLawhorn, I don't know what kind of future I got. I said, son, you 20 years old. What's the problem? I got a criminal record. So we're in an era now where, we got too many young people with criminal records. And people are using those records to deny people future opportunities. They are using it to enslave people. And we got to break the stronghold. I think that we got too many folks in the criminal justice system. We got disparity in sentencing. And we got to work on this. So I think that's a major challenge. We got too many young people involved in the criminal justice system. Educationally, there used to be a time if you had a college degree, you had a job. Today, if you have a college degree, you better have the right college degree. You better have the right grade point average. Some employers will not talk with you unless you have a 3-point or better grade point average. When we were in school, only thing they ask you, do you have a college degree? They didn't ask you what was your major, do you have a college degree? Things have changed. And I think that there still is a disconnect between academic pursuit and career opportunities. There are too many people going to college now, majoring in areas where they can't get a livable income job. And the cost of a college education is beyond the reach of most people. Today, if you go to college, it's not unusual to come out with $100,000 debt. These are things that we got to overcome. Today, you see the gap between the rich and poor. It has widened. And you would think that over the years with all the civil rights laws, all the efforts to close the achievement gap with an African American president, with all the African American elected authorities now, in essence, you would think that people would be more on a level playing field, but it's not. So in some cases, we have to keep our eyes on education. Education has been the bridge that has brought so many people over. So we're losing ground in education. Children aren't committed to education. When I was growing up, achievement was the way of life. We wanted education. Even though we had hand-me-down books, we had the thirst to get knowledge, in essence. And we knew that knowledge could take us places where our economic status couldn't take us, but we knew that knowledge could get us there. And when you look at, African Americans, my contemporaries and others, most of them came from family where they didn't have much money, but they were able to sell because of education. And so I think young people have lost sight of education. They don't see it as value added. We got issues with the criminal justice system. There's a disconnect in higher education. People are going to college, getting degrees, and people, particularly first generation people, they feel, well, if I go to college, I get a degree, I'm gonna get a good job. And there's a lot of disappointment. We got to back up and say, hey, wait a minute. Let's line this stuff up. Let's line this up together. Let's line this college degree up with career opportunities. And too many young people are pushing back from STEM courses: science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Now they call it STEAM: science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. We got to get people engaged in these courses. Some people say it's too hard. It's not too hard. One of the things about African American history, if you look at ancient African American history, math, science is natural. If you look at our history as a race of people from Africa, the Africans were the scientists, the engineers, the physicians, the technologists. So a lot of people say, well, we can't do math. My parents weren't good at math, and then parents telling children, honey, don't worry about that. I wasn't good at math either. You can get good at it. You can practice. You got to get good at it. Michael Jordan wasn't born with a basketball in his hand. He practiced. They all practice and get good.
And I guess that's the takeaway. We've come a long way. We've accomplished a lot. You mentioned African American president. A lot has happened in our time, but we have to keep going. We have to keep fighting. We're definitely not done yet.
Yeah.
Mr. McLawhorn, we want to thank you for taking time to be with us today. We want to thank you for your contributions to the city of Columbia, the state of South Carolina, of course, the Columbia Urban League. If people want to get in touch with you, is there a way, if they want to make a contribution, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, they can visit our website. Everybody with social media now.
Yes, sir.
www.columbiaurbanleague.org. They can just call us the old-fashioned way. I ran into a gentleman a couple of months ago. He said, you know what? I said, Mr. McLawhorn, you raise money a lot. I said, yes. He said, let me tell you something. If you send me an email, you send me some social stuff, and ask me for a donation, you would never get a donation from me. I said, but if you call me and come by and meet with me, you'll get a donation 9 out of 10 times. He said, but if you send me something, written correspondence, social media thing, you got a 0 chance. So you can call us, but let me just tell you about donation in essence. We've been in this business for a long time. We want people to give because of a cheerful heart. And we don't strong on people by giving us money to Urban League. Because this is civic engagement. You giving back to the community, and you give because you want to give. And so we hope that people want to give to the Urban League.
President, Chief Executive Officer, Columbia Urban League since 1979, James T. McLawhorn, Jr. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.